Charles, why do I keep hearing from people that you're the next Steve Jobs? Well, they're wrong. I'm not Steve Jobs. As far from him as you can get. Left-handed. People think I have a similar communication style. I think it's the abrasiveness, where we both had very limited tolerance for stupid people, and we're great at tearing people apart. I also tend to be eloquent when I want to be. But there's a big difference between Elizabeth Holmes and people like me when you talk about the Steve Jobs thing. So Holmes created a simulacra of Jobs. She was like every day looking at herself in the mirror. How do I make my turtleneck look like his? How do I talk like him? How do I have his mentalities and behavior and so forth? And thinking that if she emulated him enough, it would convince people she's the female Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs was a liberated mind. And that's a category. And you can spot them. You can see them. There's people who are just liberated minds. And part of it is just not giving a fuck. And also part of it is understanding how to deal with loss, finiteness of life, and being beaten up and coming back. And then part of it is having a dogmatic desire, a vision, a just passion about solving a particular problem because you think it ought to be solved, not particularly caring about whether you're going to get a lot of stuff out of it or not. So you'll meet plenty of people who actually end up looking and sounding like Jobs because you're actually hearing the category. And when you meet these people, you're just one of those guys. They're just going to win. They're just going to get it done, for better or for worse in society. The people who try to emulate that style without the conviction of a problem they want to solve and the interpersonal growth required to have that attitude and mentality, those people they never succeed, and they're always fraudulent because they're trying to build a brand to then leverage it to convince you that they have some sort of secret wisdom about life. And you can't lie about that wisdom. It's either there or it's not. You've either obtained it or you're not. Like, for example, there's the world's happiest man, Matthew Ricard. Matthew is this French gentleman. He was a scientist, and he woke up one day and said, I'm going to be a Buddhist monk, and I'm just going to learn all that stuff and zazen forever. And he did. And now he's the world's happiest man. He lives in the omega state. He's like perpetually in a mental state of bliss. He spent decades and decades meditating and building. And if you meet him, you watch an interview with him, you read any book he's written, any document he's written, he radiates tranquility and peace and internal love, which becomes part of that. It's not verbal. There's no magic words he's saying. There's no magic scroll he's reading. It's just the consequence of the pain and struggles and these other things, and the ability to live so much in the moment and find meaning in that moment and joy in that moment. You'd see this in great warriors of ages past, like the samurai who would fight on the battlefield. They didn't particularly care if they lived or died in a battle. They just fight it, especially the really good ones, because they had spent a lifetime perfecting Bushido, and they got to this point where they're there in the zone. They're in total flow with their surroundings to the extent that they could actually, some of them, cut arrows in half. In fact, there's a YouTube video where you can see a sword master who trained his daughter how to do this. He actually, she shoots an arrow at him, and he cuts it midair that's aimed at his heart. It's a real tip. It's not a gimmick. It's like just a complete denial of death impacting you or affecting you in this respect. So it's an attitude. And as I've grown older, I've concerned myself less and less and less about myself and, perceptions. And I concern more and more about the finite set of things that I'd like to solve in life, and what contributions I could make to those things. I've noticed a trend where AI is advancing, Formal methods is advancing, and there's an appetite in the mathematical community for a new language of mathematics and a new foundation of mathematics. These three things are going to have a Mexican standoff. They're going to collide with each other. That's why I created the Hoskinson Center and endowed it with enough money to be there permanently, and made sure the leadership there was somebody who was like a modern day David Hilbert, Jeremy Avogad. I believe very firmly under his leadership, with continued investment, that center over an arc of time, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, will handle that convergence of those three things in such a way that mathematicians of the 21st century leaving the 21st century will live in a utopia and be equipped with tools that were unbelievable. And they will look back at us in the 20th century and early 21st century like we look back at Sir Isaac Newton or Archimedes or other people. So that's a problem I'd like to solve. And right now, it seems like I'm going to solve it economically. I don't have to do any research. I'm not qualified for that. There are much more brilliant people. I just throw money at it and make sure there's good leadership there, which is what happened. And CMU is a phenomenal institution, and Farnham's a great president, and Jeremy's a great professor. And as they grow and they get more talent and more capabilities, I know that problem is going to make substantial progress. That's an example of a bone that I have. So I really wanted to make meaningful progress at. Cardano is another example. I keep telling you guys, I'd like to see a new social operating system. I'd like to see a new definition of economic identity. I'd like to see 1 billion people on it. So let's go fucking get it done. I don't care if it takes decades. I don't care if it takes billions of dollars of development money to do it. We have an army. We have all of you. You're along for the ride. Let's go do it. Get it done. We burnt our ships. We're here. The only way we get off this island is take the other guy's ships. We're now committed. And if we pull it off, it means the world is different. Great. There's a fanaticism about that thinking. So this is, I think, why sometimes certain people put me in that category, because I just have that mentality about the things that I want to solve. And I don't particularly care if I solve them or not, because I'm finding joy in the attempt to solve them. I'm finding meaning in the day-by-day grind, in the small progress and setbacks, and the challenge of these types of things. And that's why it's the life's work. And I did this when I was broke. I did this now, and I'm a billionaire. There is nothing holding me here. I could literally do anything, live anywhere, buy anything. But I choose to be here today, right now, in this moment, talking to you guys, pushing forward, because I honestly believe that by doing that, every single day will make some progress. And what does progress mean? It means the world is different. We leave it different than the world that we found. People who want that just think differently. The fake Steve Jobs is they want the prestige. They want the power. They want the money. They want the accolades. They want the books. They want the image. They want the praise. They want all of the you're a god. And it validates the internal narcissism. And it cowls them like a cloak. And then when you tear all those layers off, you see them for what they really are. They're scared, terrified little people who have nothing. They are nothing. They're just cloaks upon cloaks of made up stuff, because they want to be big. They want to be powerful. And psychologically, it's just terrible. And they're the saddest, most miserable people you can meet. And they have no friends, and they have no life, and they have no direction. It's just whatever is necessary to get to the next level, whatever is necessary to get the next accolade and praise. Here's the reality of life. There's a great book called The Courage to be Disliked. If you are trying to change the world for the better, you will be ridiculed, you will be demonized, you will be ostracized. In many cases, you'll be exiled. In many cases, you'll be actually kicked out of your social structure. For example, imagine being an abolitionist in 1850 in the Deep South in the United States. Do you think you'd have many friends if you're going in the town square of an economy built on slavery, saying slavery is the devil's work and it must be abolished? This is a human rights crisis. people would look at you like, you are destroying our economy, you're a horrible human being, and you get kicked out or murdered. At the very least, your economic opportunities, your status in that society is diminished. Imagine being somebody in the Middle Ages who says the Pope is not God, the Catholic Church is not supreme, they don't speak for reality. You have to use rationality. You'd be burnt at a stake as a heretic. You'd be excommunicated. You'd be exiled from society, preaching secularism in that environment. You see? So you don't necessarily doing the right thing or pursuing the right path get brownie points and get loved in society. It's quite the opposite. You're scary. You're a rebel. You're a crazy person. You're an antagonist. You're the frustrating guy. You're the hung juror. All of these things. So then really it comes down to just a very simple thing. You have to be able to look at yourself in the mirror and say, the things that I'm doing in my mind are making the world a better place for everyone, makes the world more fair. And if you can't say that, well, then you should probably stop doing the things you're doing. And if you can say that, keep doing them and stop caring about what other people say and think and do. Because the people criticizing you, they criticize you from a position of fear. And if you have the courage to take the criticism, eventually they'll have the courage to not be afraid anymore. And at that point, you can change the world. All right. Thank you so much, everyone. We'll clip it here at 2:49:49. It was a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun. I'll see you in a bit. Cheers.